welcome to the stream. So, well, we have just finished the game, Stockfish against Komodo. I think, oh, there we are. Didn't that go quickly? My browser didn't refresh. As you can see, Stockfish has won very convincingly. It was a pretty good French from the opening, but yeah, I mean, still always very convincing when you do something like this to an engine like Komodo. If we then going to have a look at the standings now, this one hasn't been updated. Let me just do a little refresh. We should see that Stockfish. When is it going to refresh? Well, Stockfish will be on 20 points. There we are. And Leela on 19.5. Komodo on 17.5, Stockfish on 15.5. So I think in general you can say that the fight for the super final is pretty clear. Basically, 12 games to go for each engine, so you could have a turnaround, but still looks pretty clear. And it's more really the fight between Stockfish and Leela for first place. Yeah, Komodo a clear third looks like. Stockfish in a little bit of that no man's land in fourth place. Allie Stein, yeah, short of the top, but clear of the rest. And then, of course, you've got a very interesting fight for relegation. I mean, I think, you know, at the moment, Ethereal looks odds on to go down, of course. But, yeah, Eagle or Scorpio, very, very unclear there. So, yeah, going to be a good, very, very interesting, you know, to see how these fights pan out. Now, what game do we have for you? We have Komodo Dragon against Allie Stein. So, yeah, I mean, Komodo really needs to win. I mean, Komodo needs to make as many wins as possible now to keep up with Stockfish and Leela, and then, you know, also try and beat them in individual games and then not lose the reverse. Quite tough, but this is for Komodo. And yeah, this is a Leningrad Dutch. Let's have a little look how that all went. So let's have a look. D4, F5, C4, Knight F6, G3. The main line against the Dutch always has been. And here we go for a Leningrad Dutch. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of stone walls, but frankly, you know, the engines really do manage to hold a lot of stone walls. It's yeah, the evaluation's always very good, but somehow the you know, I don't think the evaluation is quite right for the strength of the engines really, because they seem to play stone walls really well. But this is a Leningrad, quite a nice one. So D5, C6 is the main line, but now Knight C3, and now a rather strange move. So E7 to E5 is the main move, which is, yeah, I mean, thousands of games in that. And in principle looks sort of finish for black. Slight edge for white maybe, but really not so bad. I think Queen A5 has also been played. But this move, A5, is a little bit odd indeed. And I mean, I think that's kind of the point you know, this is how we're giving a sort of artificial advantage to Komodo here to play with. And Komodo has played very quickly, looks like, has played the move Knight D4, and now Allie has got to think about this. So let's have a little look. Let's go to my analysis board. Rather. There we are, and we're going to see how that goes. Oh, actually, sorry. Let me just pick up the PGN there, and we are ready to go. Edit, paste, import. So Knight D4, A5, Knight D4. Now, what's the point of Knight D4? It's actually 2 points, but probably the less obvious one is the most important. I mean, putting a knight on D4 is quite common for in the Leningrad Dutch, especially when you go D5, of course. because you're aiming for this square. I mean, the pawn on d5 and knight on d4 are targeting this e6 square. You know, two ideas to that, really. I mean, you're stopping black, kind of, from playing e7 to e5, although, you know, this can often be played as a temporary pawn sacrifice, and then you pick up the pawn later. Although you've got to be careful, because very often this idea is well known. You're you know, taking the just taking this this pawn here, you know, and yeah, I mean, the light square bishop can't move. You've got the c file to come in. It's very, very dangerous. It's a well-known sacrifice. So yeah, so I mean, that's but that's one idea. I mean, the other idea would be to play the knight into e6. That's not always that clear, by the way. I mean, just you know, just give me a move that wouldn't be played. This would lose a pawn to dc, but just to show the idea. Takes. Yeah, I mean, the problem with this sort of thing, it looks, you know, very good. You think, oh, very aggressive, pawn on e6, but you know, first of all, it's quite weak and easy to attack. But secondly, of course, you know, the fact that there's a pawn on the e6 square means that it's no longer a weakness for black. It's you know, if it's occupied by a piece, then it's a horrible thing if that's a knight on there. But if it's a pawn, then there's not really very much danger. I mean, I once had a structure very similar to this in the Dutch league against a nice guy called Otto Rubing, and I won very convincingly. And I really felt that, you know, that with this pawn here, all my problems really were at an end. You know, that's basically how it felt. But in this position, knight d4's got another idea, and that's actually attacking the pawn on c6. And that is rather annoying here. Now, yeah, I mean, if you did this in a normal situation, I mean, you might consider playing a move like c5. But there's a number of little problems with that. I mean, first of all, you know, knight e6. This is much better for white if you know, this diagonal is open. You know, with a pawn on c6, then this bishop is not active, but here it's always being active, and that makes it also possible to defend the pawn on e6. And secondly, also, I mean, you've got moves like knight db5, which are extremely annoying in the sense that it really does stop black from ever playing e6 or e5. So yeah, I mean, c5, you know, if you hadn't played a5, of course, you know, if you'd played, I don't know, a6, then you know, after knight d4 c5, there isn't this this lost square on b5, really. You know, even if the pawn's on a7, for example, black's still got control. But of course, with the pawn on a5, that makes it yeah, you know, sort of even worse. I mean, black can, you know, try and just hold the position, you know, something like bishop d7. But that does raise a couple of questions. For example, you know, how are you going to develop this knight on b8? Because if the knight moves to a6, I just take on c6. And also, you know, this plan I showed you before of after bishop d7 of playing I don't know, let's just say rook b1 or something like that, e6, e5, you know, temporary pawn sacrifice. Well, it doesn't work because d attacks the bishop on d7. So, I mean, really, it's not, you know, like it's lost or anything, but there's a number of, you know, after a5, knight d4, there's a number of development things that come together that just make sure that black's basically not going to get free quickly, not going to get his normal quick and easy Leningrad counterplay. So, quite interested to see actually how Komodo is or rather Allie Stein is going to try and get out of this, and this is quite interesting actually. So Allie Stein took this rather radical decision to take on d5 straight away. Now I would have been you know, vaguely tempted by taking with a pawn on d5. I'm just trying to think why that would appeal to me more than taking with a knight, really. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think just normally you just sort of assume that. Well, I think it's two things, really. I think it's two things. I think first of all, I feel that I've got more space than black. So then I feel like I shouldn't really be exchanging off pieces. So let's keep some knights on. Secondly, I mean, this knight does have a very, interesting square on b5, really. So yeah, you sort of feel let's try and exploit that. And I suppose I'm just thinking as well that if I go when I go knight takes d5, knight d5 ed, this bishop looks active straight away, whereas if I've left a knight on f6, then it looks a little bit less active. So yeah, I mean, from that point of view, knight takes d5 does surprise me a little bit. I wonder whether is Komodo thinking about taking with the bishop? Komodo is thinking about taking with the bishop on d5, and that's quite interesting. I mean, that's really that's a very specific, concrete plan. I mean, why is it interesting? Well, I mean, I much prefer that to taking on d5 with the knight than taking with the pawn. I think if you're going to play the pawn recapture, I think you should play c takes d5, to be honest. Bishop d5 check. Obviously, yeah, I mean, it's a very forcing move. It's a very concrete move. I mean, the one thing you've got to watch out for, I mean, obviously you could play a move like knight e6 at some stage. That's possible. Although, yeah, a bishop on e6 is not bad, but it's not as good as a knight, really. So it's not a massive threat. I mean, the other thing as well is that with c takes d5, I mean, you're really restraining the black centre. So e5 is actually never going to happen here. When you go bishop takes d5, then yeah, black might get in somehow an e6 or an e5, and then maybe an e4. I mean, black is going to get some sort of central play there. So it's from that point of view, it's a little bit more risky. If you mess up with white, then black's just getting some trumps for free. And so always risky. I always used to have some difficulties. I think making. I think it's fair to say making these sort of decisions. I love the very concrete ideas like bishop takes d5, but yeah, you're always slightly afraid of just in a concrete idea missing something small but also important, and then you've thrown away most of your positional advantage that you could have had very easily just with a simple continuation. So yeah, very interesting. So bishop d5, king h8. And then Komodo's looking at playing bishop g5, which is quite interesting. The idea is, the bishop is well, obviously pinning the e7 pawn. It's not that it can establish itself there, at h6. But then I go something like bishop e3, and then I'm going to get when I get queen d2 in, it means that I'm going to be attacking the pawn, so I'm going to get an extra tempo as well. And if you look at the bishop on d5 and the knight on d4, they're stopping anything from coming to c6. Well, probably stopping. Might be a decent pawn sacrifice. You never know. Which is quite inconvenient. And for the moment, if black goes something like e5, then well, I mean, something like knight b5 is very interesting because d6 is very weak. So, yeah, interesting there. I do actually wonder, I mean, what would Leela have done after c takes d5? I'm kind of intrigued by this. Oh, good Lord, I've ended up not... I've ended up not actually on the analysis board there, so let me switch now that I've started Leela. So yeah, Leela is actually looking for knight d5 and bishop takes d5, and then looking for bishop e3, queen d2, and claiming 0.44, which is not bad at all there. So interesting, Leela also going for the concrete line actually, but it's quite interesting here for black. If you see what's happening here, Leela's suggesting here quite a sharp plan here, bishop e3. E5 and then f4, so that would be knight d5 takes, king h8, bishop e3, let's do a new main line, e5, knight b5 and f4, and then the bishop gets chased back. A lot of weaknesses there, but there's stuff maybe like bishop h3 at some stage, probably knight c6 first to avoid bishop b7. There's stuff. So yeah, very interesting plan there. I can see that yeah, Leela also likes this plan of bishop g5 first. So bishop g5 and then h6 and bishop e3. And you know, it's not just the tempo against h6; it's also the you know, the weakness of the g6 square, for example. You know that the kingside light squares are slightly weakened, so it's also that. And it's expecting something like knight a6, queen d2, king h7, knight b5. Yeah, I mean, in principle, you know, a pleasant position for white. Some entrenched pieces on the queen side here, and it's going to be difficult for black to really break free there. Let's have a look. What has Komodo done? So bishop takes d5 has been played, king h8, and now trying to think between bishop e3 and bishop g5. Yeah, I mean, I think if you go bishop e3, then you're probably more likely to get in queen d2 and bishop h6 to swap off the dark squared bishops. If you go bishop g5 and sort of you know, tempt out that h6 movement, then you get an extra tempo when you go queen d2. It's yeah, you know, sort of swings and roundabouts really. Yeah, maybe it's not even worth, you know, spending the time to think about it. You just plump for one, and then you know, and then you go for that. I think that's yeah, probably the best there. Now I've got to make a little bet here. I think we're nearly past the time actually. Oh, 1 minute left. Am I going to bet on a Komodo win? No, I am going to bet on a draw, I think. So I've just been losing lots and lots of points, but I'm going to put 1,000. There we are on a draw, or 0-1. But okay, we'll do that, and we'll see how that goes. Oops, I just whilst betting, sorry about that. So, okay, let's have a little look at the analysis board then. Yeah, Leela going for this line still. This really seems to be Leela's favourite move, just to go there, and I think this is going to be probably pretty much what we're going to get. So, what sort of plans does Black have here actually? Well, it's not an easy position for Black. I will definitely say that. What are Black's problems here? Well, first of all, there's the pawn on b7 here, you know, which is a bit of a pain. Attacked by the bishop on d5, and yeah, that actually means that the bishop on c8 is hard to develop. Let me just check how many nodes have we got so far. We've got. Can I? Oh, it's at the bottom there. 1,703. I'm doing 6 kilonodes per second. It's not too impressive, really. I think I could probably tweak it. I've got a 3080 after all. It should be a little bit faster than that. But this bishop on d5 is attacking the pawn on b7, so it means that this bishop on c8 is going to have problems developing, and not so easy to sort that out, because I mean, if you go something like rook b8, I can always go bishop a7, you know, whenever it's necessary, and then, you know, if rook a8, then if the bishop's moved away, then bishop takes b7. So yeah, I mean, that's not it's not particularly easy to find a way. So I mean, with Black, you're also not really going to be really thinking of making moves on the king side, I don't think. You know, you don't want to go play a move like e6, because, you know, I go back and then this pawn on d6 is probably just lost actually. So that's not so good. You might, you know, maybe try something like an e5 or something like that. You've got to be a little bit careful. You know, you're hoping for a sort of an f5 to f4 plan, but I mean, there's already stuff like you know, like here, you know, which is possible and has to be considered. So yeah, you know, not particularly obvious. So I mean, the obvious thing to do then is to look to do something with your knight. You know, use this knight, which is still a a relatively free agent. You know, use this knight to try and do something. I mean, you can't go anything like knight c7 because we've got bishop b6. Yeah, I mean, two things suggest themselves: either playing the knight to c5, or yeah, playing the knight to b4 maybe, which is what Leela's looking at, which I wouldn't have really thought of very much as a plan. Really, I would have thought bringing the knight into c5 would be, you know, a more well, it's a much more natural line. I mean, you know, the idea really is that you're probably going to be willing to develop that bishop from c8, allow him to take on c5 and take on b7, and then claim you've got this, you know, the two bishops and a raking bishop on g7 as compensation. You know, that would seem to be more natural to me. But yeah, I mean, if you've gone bishop e3 and king h7, then a few of these things are quite awkward. You know, I mean, I can just go rook d1 when I've got a very powerful threat of taking on c5 and then doing a bishop g8. Whoopsie, other way around. You know what I mean? Bishop g8, discovered attack, and then queen takes d8. So yeah, tactically it's a little bit ropey. I mean, I don't know. Maybe after something like rook d1, you'd play knight e4, maybe go knight f6, try and kick the bishop away. But I'm not sure. You know, I'm not really getting a feel from myself of, you know, I'm finding good long-term ways to develop here for black. I'm just, it feels more like I'm randomly moving my pieces around, and maybe not that successfully either. So I don't know. You know, I think this is quite a tricky little position for black to solve here. So let's see whether... okay, we've had this bishop g5, h6, bishop e3, as we expected. And now we've got to see what Komodo is going to come up with. What Allie Stein is going to come up with. Looking at Allie Stein's PV, it's looking for this knight c5 plan. Yeah, I mean, just trying to survive a bit on the queen side, make a little bit of play with a5 to a4. That, to be honest, is as good as any plan I can think of. Komodo looking a little bit more for... yeah, Komodo's PV is quite interesting, actually. Well worth looking at there. It was looking at... it's all disappeared now, unfortunately. But it was looking at very quick plans of a4 from black, and then a very quick e5 and f4. So you know, what we looked at basically, but even quicker. But now Allie has played knight a6, so Komodo's having a think here. I mean, I think queen d2 is bound to be played here, and then yeah, afterwards it's a question of just trying to work out how to increase the pressure. So let's have a little play around here. So yeah, I suggested rook ad1 here. Well, let's have a look. I mean, we can see what Leela's going for. I mean, actually, yeah, this move knight b4. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be surprised. Whoops, sorry about that. I'd be surprised if that really came up. I would expect knight c5. And then we've got to decide. I mean, we've got rook fd1 or rook ad1. I played rook ad1, probably just feeling the need to get out of this pin. But there is an argument for rook fd1 here. You're a little bit less protected if black decides to go bananas with with a quick f4. But on the other hand, probably this rook on here is going to be more useful, maybe, you know, supporting a b4 break, or even a c4 to c5 break if we manage to eject the knight, rather than on f1. You know, it's probably doing more on the queen side on balance, but it's a difficult one. You know, I mean, yeah. I mean, you could also make an argument for, okay, I'm going to go rook d1, and I'm going to keep this rook just to make sure my king stays super safe at all times, you know. So, but okay, let's put it back there, and then we're going to see what Leela fancies here. Yeah, rook fd1 is really what it's looking for here. 0.54, so it, yeah, doesn't like this knight c5 plan quite as much. So what Leela's looking at, and you know, I think what Allie was looking at in its PV is to actually play this slightly risky feeling. So rook fd1 first of all, risky feeling queen b6. So yeah, self-pinning, that's always a little bit tricky. But the idea is very logical, actually. It is to go bishop d7, and then bishop c6, or maybe bishop b5. You know, that could also be a possibility. But in that way, you know, you're self-pinning, but you're actually getting yourself, you know, just a bit active. Now, I mean, certainly the human move, you know, the really, really natural one, reaction to knight c5 would be to play a move like rook b1, actually. You know, looking somehow, maybe, you know, slowly, but to get in b3 and then a3 and then b4, you know, just to attack this knight on c5, and you know, that feels like a decent little idea. But what Allie's looking at, and I saw this in Komodo's PV, and sorry, what Leela's looking at, I saw it in Komodo's PV as well. Quite surprising is this move a4. Wow. So abandoning all chance of going b4, but of course, you know, what you're doing, you are solidifying the knight against bishop d7, and if black takes on b5 now and you go a takes b5, then wow, that's quite a bind on the queen side, really. And then this idea, which you know, I wouldn't have thought of at all, bishop c6, and then the self-pinning rook d3. So the idea of this is to really try and keep black under a complete bind. I mean, black really would want to move this queen away somewhere, but obviously, you know, queen a6, we get some knight c7 stuff, and queen d8, we get bishop c5 and bishop c6. So it's actually, you know, not that easy at all for black to get himself, yeah, unpinned there. And I mean, if bishop d5, which is quite obvious, but we go rook d5. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go bishop takes c5, and this, you know, rook a3, a4, rook a3 to d3 has got the rook beautifully placed, you know, for the resulting position. For example, you know, queen c6, bishop c5, dc, and I don't know, rook d7 or whatever. You know, I mean, we're looking beautifully placed for this position. So that's a very, very, very interesting idea. I suppose, you know, the if you're going to make a criticism about a4, it's just that it's a very static plan. You know, I mean, this idea of going a3, b4, kicking the knight, if you get it in, then, you know, obviously it's quite a nice one. So, yeah, giving that up, you know, I mean, for engines, that's not really a difficulty, right? That it's something that they can just do. But for a human player, you know, giving up a break, giving up the possibility of a break, you know, relying on all your advantages on the rest of the board in order to you know, in order to and claiming a serious advantage that way. It's yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, because I mean, I was sort of wondering. Well, we're going to see. Shall I put? I think I can put. I don't think my PC is going to explode too much if I do this. Not sure, but just get Stockfish running as well. But I mean, what I was thinking about was rook b1, bishop d7, and then something like, I mean, I'd want to go a3, and if bishop b5, then I want to play b4. You know, this is the key idea that I was looking for. You know, and the beautiful idea is that, you know, if you go bishop a4 or something, I go b takes c5. And then I'm going rook takes b7. I don't care about the exchange. I'm just going through. So that would be the idea, but we're not quite fast enough, it looks like, because black could play a4. Yeah, we're not going to get him b4. And yeah, you know, black's still threatening bishop takes b5. And Stockfish doesn't like that. So maybe we just, yeah, you have to conclude that for the dynamic approach, you're just a little bit too slow, you know. So yeah. So maybe you're going to have to play this static approach with a4 and rook a3 to d3. My goodness, let's have a little look. Let's see what Komodo's been up to. Actually, Komodo's thinking quite a lot, I think. Is that correct? Yeah, 7 minutes already. So after knight a6, 7 minutes already, and yeah. Well, from the PV, it doesn't look, it doesn't look too amazing. You know, the PV, just knight b5 and queen d2. So let's have a look at Allie's PV here. Quite interesting as well. Knight c5, queen d2, king h7, rook d1, queen b6, and then Allie's looking at bishop g2. So it's not going to play this static move a4. And then it gets in a4, and then it goes queen a5. So just, gets out a little bit more. Takes, rook d1. Yeah, and we've got this sort of position where Black's got this bishop, you know, on g7, and got the two bishops, but obviously you're not really very happy about your bishop on c8 or your pawn on b7. So it's going to take some effort to get out of this. But you know, Allie felt that it was possible. So yeah, I mean that's quite interesting. Komodo's PV not very revealing really. Does that sometimes? You don't get many moves. It's looking at going queen d2 now and rook d1, and just not committing the knight to b5. I don't know. I mean, I think probably committing the knight to b5 is quite a decent idea, but yeah. We're going to see. We're going to see about that. Very long thing from Komodo there. Already used 38 minutes. Well, already down to 38 minutes, whereas Allie's on 51 still. But queen d2 is what we're expecting. So I think. Oh, g5 from Allie. Wow, that's going to put the cat amongst the pigeons. Yeah, g5. Wow. All right. Let's have a little look at that one. So queen d2 there. Just see whether Leela fancies playing g5 there. No. Yeah, I mean g5. To be honest, it's very much a move that I would be thinking about. Because I mean you're just getting you just get a threat for free, right? With f4, you know, and it feels like it could be dangerous. The only thing is that you know your king side is a little bit more exposed there, and you know it's not really clear that that your attacking chances are going to be that dangerous there. So yeah, I mean, you know, moves like for a human player, you know, moves like f4 do feel very tempting, you know, under those circumstances. But here, you know, it's what I said about this move, bishop takes d5, that, you know, it can, let me just move over to the board, shall I? It's just this move, bishop d5. I mean, it can also turn out to be, you know, just you're losing some of your positional advantages here. And, well, what Leela recommends against this move, which, you know, f4 would be a very natural move, is just to go back here and then to play e5. And, well, you very cleverly, you've covered the b5 square, so knight b5 is not so great. And, well, Black's managed to play e5 and fight for the centre. You know, and after knight c2, knight e6, well, no, Black's giving it a go. It's getting messy. It's getting unclear. So, yeah, I mean, that's... so, you know, from that point of view, if f4 is not particularly strong, then there could be some interesting things. I mean, you're also threatening just straight away. You're threatening e7 to e5 and then f5 to f4. You know, so I mean, this is really you know, really quite dangerous. Now, Leela's plan, I think, is actually it's looking to it's probably almost going to transpose to what Leela was thinking about before. Although I think it was really playing king h7 all the time, which is knight b5. And then it wants to play knight b4. The idea being that if you go, bishop g2, I could even play bishop e6, attacking the pawn on c4. And you could also, another idea here for white would be to play bishop d4, just to exchange off the dark square bishops. And I suppose, the idea then in that case is what you're trying to claim is that after takes, bishop d7, okay, I mean, let's just say bishop takes, takes, and then knight d4. You're just trying to claim that you've got a better minor piece than black. That knight on d4 is better than the bishop on d7. I think that's a decent claim, but on the other hand, the pieces are so reduced that, I don't think it's going to be very easy to make something of that claim. Maybe if you could break through dangerously with e4 and then e5, that might be, but I would have thought that that black's got enough distracting moves. I mean, actually, Allie's pointing one out here, a4, in order to play queen a5, and attack the d5 pawn and threaten the exchange of queens. That's also quite nice. So, yeah, g5, challenging move there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it's not losing, then it's definitely got a future. So yeah, I mean, knight b5 does seem very natural. I think we'll go for that, and then I'm going to lock the engine on this position, and we'll see. It feels very natural because you get out of this e5 and f4 thing quickly. So this bishop actually gets some squares, and you also stop knight c7 because of bishop b6. So that's actually quite nice there. I heard a sound of chess pieces being moved. I thought so. Yeah, Allie played g5, and we've got knight b5. Okay, that's fine. So now we really need a move, and Allie is indeed looking for this line where you go knight b4 and then take the bishop on d5. I don't think that looks too bad, actually. I really don't think that that this is too bad for black. So knight b4. So let's have a look. I mean, ideally, of course, I would just go. I mean, the point is, this knight on b4 here. It's a bit of a temporary sort of square, isn't it? Really. I mean, it's not going to stay there forever. I mean, we can kick it with a3. So in those sort of circumstances, rather than let the knight exchange itself for a bishop, you sort of think, well, let's move the bishop back. I mean, in some ways, this knight, it's given black the ability to go knight c6 and, block this diagonal with a piece. That's possible too. But I would guess, yeah, I mean, bishop e6 looks, certainly looks like a move that you could play, isn't it? Because, I mean, you're attacking c4. If bishop b7, I just go rook b8. And actually, this pawn on c4 is not so easy to defend. I mean, I could do the old b3 and tempt out this one, which is always going to be, pretty decent compensation. You have to say, it looks quite dangerous, but yeah, I mean, it's unclear at least. You would say, because if you go, you've probably got to do something like that, because after rook c1, then we can just go knight a2, which is rather irritating. I mean, you could go rook c1, but then I go rook c8 simply and attack the pawn on c4. So it all looks a little bit annoying. I mean, there might be some sort of bishop d4 tricks. You're hoping to take on g7. You're hoping to take on g7 there and then get a queen d4 check, maybe fork if somebody takes on c4 somewhere. But yeah, not 100% clear. Well, actually, funnily enough, whilst I've been looking at this, you can see that that Leela is actually looking for the same thing here, because it's saying bishop g2, bishop e6, b3, bishop a1, rook a1. There we are. Great minds think alike here. Well, Komodo is not quite thinking the same thing there. Oh my goodness me! I'm terribly sorry about this. I've really got to do this a bit better and switch to the right board there, or make the board a little bit bigger on the main screen maybe. But this was the idea really, just to have this. But yeah, as you can see, Leela's thinking of doing this. This is quite, yeah, I think this is very dangerous. I mean, obviously you've got this bishop over here, you know, that's awkward pressure. And I mean, this bishop's doing a great job looking over here, but, you know, there's also this d4 transit point where it can attack over here. Can I do that? Here. 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 Oh, well, you know what I mean. And also, if I just, let me just clear, I've got too many arrows there. So clear. What you've also got, of course, is a move like h4, and you know, this king side is quite weak there. So would be a very interesting exchange sacrifice, I think. I'm very much in favour of that one. Now it's going to be interesting to see what Komodo comes up with here. So bishop e6 has been played, and now Komodo's looking for bishop d4, which is a lot calmer, I would say. Bishop d4. So b3, that was Leela's plan there. b3. Yeah. Bishop d4 is Komodo's idea. So let's just, I've always got to remember, I've got to switch to the board first. So what Komodo is doing is very sensible. It's bishop d4. And then after bishop takes c4, you would simply have check there and queen check. And then you pick up this, this bishop here with this fork. So, I mean, that's pretty obvious. Yeah, this is actually what Komodo has done then. So bishop d4. Well, I think that exchange sacrifice was interesting, to be honest. But this is a very you'd say a very sensible idea here. And so I mean, what we're expecting is knight c6, and then we're going to go bishop takes g7, king takes g7. And then we'll protect the pawn on c4. So they're saying go b3 here. Why not? I was wondering whether it was strictly necessary, because bishop takes c4, we'd have queen c3, but there's maybe knight e5, and you're attacking this knight on b5. So probably true. So b3, you know, is obvious. And well, why would this be better for white actually? Well, there's a number of things really. I mean, first of all, if you look at you know, activity of the pieces, I mean, this bishop on g2 is you know, nicer than this bishop on e6. It's a sort of a Catalan bishop, isn't it? You know, cutting across the position. I mean, black hasn't really got any, you know, pawn barrier to this bishop, so this bishop's always going to be very powerful. I mean, we've also got this this knight on b5, which is, you know, entrenched on a beautiful outpost. And of course, you know, what we've done, we've exchanged off black's dark squared bishop, so there's no counterplay, you know, anywhere really happening. And of course, you know, the black king is also just a little bit exposed there. And I think, you know, what you'd be looking for with white is you know, some sort of plan like come on. Oh dear me, got it wrong again. c4 to c5, that's what we want. Just opening up the queen side and you know, converging against this guy. That's a very natural way of playing. And I mean, there's loads of dark squared weaknesses somehow. So you know, you put the rooks. You know, I think you put the rooks on c1 and d1. You play c5. If something like dc, you go queen e3, attacking the bishop on e6. It's could be very unpleasant. And you know, what's also nice for white is that you've got this this move f2 to f4, which takes control of e5, which would be quite a nice knight outpost for black. So yeah, you know, I mean, I think this is this looks fairly pleasant for white. So let's have a look how Allie has reacted. That's good. King takes g7, and now yeah, Komodo's saying b3. Yeah, I mean, Allie's sort of looking to get in a4, looks like, and then just I guess just going to try and sit a bit. Well, no, that's not really doing Allie justice. Let's have a look at Allie's PV, which is quite interesting. So king g7, b3, a4, rook a b1, rook f6. A little bit odd in a way, but I think it's just a general consolidating move. You know, the rook is blocking this the check along the a1 h8 diagonal, and it's also protecting the loose bishop on e6. So you know, it's just a good solid move. You know, sort of all sorts of tactical things aren't going to happen because of it. Okay, well the PV's moving now, so let's go. Let's see what Komodo did. Well, let's have a look at Komodo's PV. What's Komodo's expectation? Rook f6 as well, this move. Knight c3. Funny how these engines are not, you know, I'd just be leaving that knight on b5 forever because I like the square so much. But yeah, they're just regrouping. King g8, b4, brave move. Leaving c4 on priest, but then we'd have bishop d5 check. Haha, very nice. Let me just show you that trick. So what was Komodo saying? It was a4, was it e3, rook f6, rook b1? I think it was. Takes. Queen b6, knight c3. What was it? King g8, queen b2. Sorry, I'm going a bit crazy there. I've forgotten it. The idea was I don't know. Maybe was it rook f8 or something like that? It wasn't, was it? But something like that anyway. Komodo's idea was b4 with the nice tactic that if there, I can play this move check. So obviously forking the king and the bishop. So bishop d5 force, and then I go knight d5, and I'm forking these two. A nice little trick from Komodo there. But let's get back to what the actual situation is. A4 played by Allie. B3 and then A4. So interesting from Leela. Leela not particularly liking that because Leela wants to take the chance to get in B4 somehow, which is not silly at all in actual fact. And it looks like Komodo is actually looking for the same. Now, just show you Leela's variation now. So I'll just lock the engine for there. So knight d4, forking those two. If knight takes d4, I go queen takes d4. Whoops. Hitting that one, and I'm also attacking this one as well. I guess that's winning a pawn. You never quite know, because after king h7 takes, I could go rook b8, and then I'm attacking the bishop and the pawn beyond it. And then it's just a question whether that's really winning a pawn. I've got little ideas like queen e3, hitting the e6 pawn and defending b3, but I'm not really sure. Are they working? Don't know really, don't know. Although, yeah, I mean, it looks very risky for black. You know, I mean, there's always stuff even like takes, and rook a8. You know, it's not quite working for me, but I think it could be quite dangerous. So black's most obvious idea is to go bishop d7 just to protect this one. But then Leela wants to play this move b4. And, well, I mean, the point is, why would you rather do this? Well, of course, in principle, black's really the one who's struggling to hold this for a draw. So if black can exchange off pawns, that's only good, really. And a bit of simplification, maybe even exchange off the rooks on the A file. That in general, that's going to help. You've got to be, obviously, always a bit careful. It can't be indiscriminate exchanges, but in principle this is going to be good. So playing a move like b4 keeps queenside pawns on, and also sets up this pawn here as a potential future weakness. So it's not not at all a bad idea. This one could be quite interesting. So let's have a look. Is Komodo doing this? Komodo having a big long think here, I think. Another big long think. Really, yeah, quite a bit behind Allie Stein on time. 20 minutes. That's huge, really, for a 60-minute time control, really. What is Komodo looking at? Komodo's just decided maybe just the quiet Rook AB1. That's possible, but I think, yeah, I don't know. I like this idea of knight d4. Keeps some complexity in the position, and Rook b1 again. It's all quite flat. You feel the position, and you really do wonder whether Dragon is really going to be able to convert this, to make something of it. I'm not sure, really. I'm not sure. I think this is probably more likely to be a draw than a win. Would be my impression there. Okay, let's have a little look at the PVs just whilst we're waiting there. 8 takes b3, knight d4, lovely. Just an unnecessary move order, you might say. Rook fd1, queen c7. Yeah, rook a1, queen c5. Yeah, I mean, you see this a lot in the engine games. What Allie is doing here is it's exchanged off some pawns already, and then it's just going to go for an ending where it's going to lose a pawn, but it thinks it's got a good chance of getting all the pawns on one side. So yeah, I mean, I think Komodo has to watch out for this. I don't like this Allie plan of playing knight d4 and swapping off these knights. I think you should be trying to keep your minor pieces really now, and trying to organise some pawn breaks. That feels like a better chance for winning. Put it that way. I don't know whether it's the best objectively, but that feels like a better chance for winning. I think swapping off the knights is making it very, very close to tedious, I think. So yeah, rook b1 from Komodo, and was it expecting knight c3, takes, queen b6, queen b2, king g8, e3, rook f8, rook e1, bishop f7, queen d2. Mwah. Yeah, it's not looking that amazing, is it? Really, it's just it's an advantage for white, really. Just more active pieces, and black's a little bit higgledy-piggledy, really, but it's not. I don't think it's a winning advantage. I think, or Komodo will have to find something, extremely unusually strong, I think, to convert this into a win. I wouldn't have thought that this would. I would normally, think that this would be a draw, which is good for my channel points because I bet 1,000 on a draw. So. So okay, I think this one's going to carry on for quite some time now. I think this is going to be a bit of a long draw, really. I fear. So yeah, we'll just maybe just round off the stream there. Just have a quick look, just to. Have a look at the standings again. Then, so Stockfish 20. If this is a draw, then Komodo would have 18, so point and a half behind Lila with a game extra played. So starting to get a bit of a too big a chasm to gulf, really. Chasm to gulf, is that English? My goodness, I don't know. Allie Stein on 14 and a half. Totally safe from relegation, but not troubling the top spaces either. So yeah. Yeah, for a human player, nothing to play for Allie, of course. It's all just a game. F2, yeah. Yeah, rook f6, e3. Yeah, Komodo's evaluation is very high, really, I think. It is just a nice position for white. You wouldn't want to get this against Magnus. You'd feel very uncomfortable. You'd know that you were going to be ground forever. But when you're an engine and you don't care how long the game lasts, it's not going to be that much of a problem, I don't think. I think this is odds on for a draw. All right. Well, I hope that was instructive. I hope it sort of was interesting, and you enjoyed looking at the TCC together with me. Just doing these little bite-sized bits for the moment, actually just to learn to use the software. As you can see, I'm still messing things up from time to time, switching between different scenes. But well, with a bit of luck, this will eventually get sorted out. And yeah, I mean, the aim, the reason I'm doing this is I'd really like to do some longer streaming during the SuperFinal, because well, I've done the book together with Jeroen Nomen. We've both taken 25 openings for the SuperFinal, so it would be lovely to stream during there. So I'm just sort of getting into that. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and thanks very much everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe or to like if you feel like it, and otherwise see you next time. Thanks very